Am I the a-hole for ghosting my girlfriend after she nearly killed the both of us? So, my girlfriend 20F and I, 22M, have been together for a little over 10 months now. We haven't had any heated arguments or fights, except for the fact that she keeps tickling me randomly, despite the fact that I've repeatedly told her to never do it again, because I can act strangely to it, something from my childhood which I won't delve on. But now on to the current situation. This week I've had my car returned from a paint job and some major look changes, and I was really satisfied with the results. So, I took a day off from work and took my girlfriend on a short trip outside the city. We drove to a lake, ate some food, and relaxed for a couple of hours until it got pretty dark, and we decided to head back home to get some sleep as I had to go to work the next day and she had an exam. On the way home, I started talking about how happy I felt with how the paint job turned out, and out of nowhere, she starts tickling me. I pushed her hand away and told her to stop. Then she reached for my ribs with both hands and got me swerving off the road. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, although my car got some deep scratches, but that doesn't even matter anymore, as I had already slowed down after her first attempt to tickle me. Now, I will admit that I told her, "What the F is wrong with you?" as soon as we stepped out of the car, and she started crying, but I couldn't care less, as I felt as if my veins were about to pop. When we got home, I told her to pack her things and go to her best friend's place, but she threw a tantrum and begged me to forgive her over a little mistake. But I didn't say a word. I simply stared in disgust and pointed to her luggage. After her friend picked her up, I tried to go to sleep, but my mind was racing, so I barely got any rest. This happened on Tuesday, and she's been blowing up my phone ever since, but I haven't answered any calls or text messages, and I have just blocked her. This led to her friend coming over to my house and telling me to at least hear my girlfriend out, but I've told her to F off and leave me alone, which made her tell me that I'm more in love with a car than I am with my girlfriend. So, am I the a-hole in this situation? Should I talk to my girlfriend? I already feel like I can't trust her after what happened, and that our relationship can't be fixed. Then in the comments section, the consensus was that OP was not the a-hole. Edit. I feel I should clarify this. The car is already in the process of getting fixed. It was never about that. What led me to blow up was the fact that she did such a stupid thing while I was driving at night, and didn't stop after her first attempt. I wouldn't have had such a reaction if she tickled me in a safe environment. In any case, I really appreciate any opinion, as I feel like I have to take a decision about what will happen pretty soon. Then in the comments section, one user said, "I would say you're more in love with being alive than being with your girlfriend. Not the a-hole. It's 10 months, not 10 years. Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. She is an effing idiot. It wasn't just a little mistake. You don't mess with someone while they're driving, period. You've also told her time and time again not to tickle you, and she refuses to respect that boundary, to the point of putting you and everyone on the road around you in danger. She can F right off IMO." Update. So, the past couple of hours have been insane, honestly. Before the actual update, I just wanted to sort some things out. 1. I've seen people talking about this post being rage bait or fake. Honestly, I wish it was, but I actually needed to hear some opinions on what happened. 2. Some people talked about me having anger issues. This is not true at all. I never snapped at her like this before for tickling me, let alone hitting her or anything like this, but in the rage of the moment, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I might consider myself to be a calm person, but that doesn't mean I will laugh and giggle through stupid stuff. 3. The actual crash happened at a speed that could have killed us if I swerved in the wrong direction. I was driving on a country road and could have frontally hit a car coming from the other direction, as the speed at which the crash happened was around 40 miles per hour. 4. The tickling part in childhood trauma. I've mentioned this to my now ex-girlfriend around 3 months into our relationship, but as many have pointed out, I wasn't dating the sharpest tool in the shed, and it took me a while to realize it, so I guess I might be a bit dumb as well. And 5. I think I might have misused the term ghosting. In my head, telling her to get out of my house was already a clear sign of our relationship status. Now onto the actual update. After reading nearly all the comments, I took the decision to send my ex a message where I told her we should meet face to face. Some people also suggested that I should file for a lawsuit, but my ex is still in university, and her parents can barely afford helping her. She obviously has done an insanely dumb stunt, but I don't want to punish her parents for it. The car is in the process of getting fixed, and I can afford it without major financial issues. Still, I took screenshots of her messages in order for me to have some proof in case the situation escalates. So, we met earlier at a coffee shop. She looked as if she's been crying for a long time, but it did not change my mind at all. What shocked me was the fact that she leaned in for a kiss when she saw me, as if nothing happened. I stopped her and told her that we need to have a serious conversation. I explained that what happened wasn't because of the car itself, but because of her disrespecting my boundaries and not thinking for a second about what might happen if she did that thing. Besides that, I also felt disrespected by the fact that her best friend came knocking at my door to demand things, despite not having any rights to do so, which led me to ask if my ex told her best friend the truth, or if she lied about the situation. And she said that she only told her friend that we had a small car crash, and that I'm pissed at her. Hearing that made me feel disappointed as hell, but I did my best to remain calm. I told her to tell the real story to her friends and family, and she raised her voice and told me that I'm accusing her of being a liar, something that led to a 15-minute discussion about how the crash was solely her fault and how she put our lives at risk. I asked her if everything was clear about our situation, and her response was, "Yup, 100%. Can we go home now?" That honestly shocked me. I told her that there's no way we can get back together, and I suggested she should be more careful and considerate with her future partner. Her reaction was all tears, shaking, begging me to reconsider my decision, but I just can't look at her the same. I explained again that for me it wasn't a small mistake she made, it was a full-on stupid decision that shouldn't be done by an adult, as it could have resulted in something deadly. She just thinks I'm exaggerating, and this back-and-forth argument led to her asking if there's someone else in my life, and I'm just using the accident as an excuse. I denied and told her that she's too selfish to even realize that she broke my trust and disrespects me by saying this crap. So I left the coffee shop feeling like I've been talking to a wall, but at least I can't say that I didn't try to have a conversation. An hour ago, her mom texted me asking what happened, and I told her everything. I said that I don't want any money from them, but the only thing I'm asking is for my ex to keep her distance from me. She apologized for what her daughter did and wished me all the best. As for her friend, from my understanding, she just came to my house without talking with my ex on whether she should do it or not, so I guess she tried to be the main character in this whole story. Right now, I'm preparing for work, but my chest isn't heavy anymore. In case anything will happen in the future, I will keep everyone updated, but I hope that won't be the case. Thank you for helping me navigate this weird situation, and thanks for all the kind messages. Hope everyone stays safe. Edit. Sorry if this wasn't the drama-filled update some people might have expected, but I came here with the desire to get some perspective on my situation, and to be as transparent as possible. I never intended to post this story for votes or anything like that. Then OP provided a timeline of events in the comment section and said, "Every detail of the story happened during the last 4 days, but to give an exact order of how things happened: 1. Car crash. 2. We broke up. 3. Friend came over. 4. Sent car to shop 6 hours before my original post. And 5. This morning we met at a coffee shop around 10 a.m. And then her mom texted me." Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Redditors will just say really whatever they feel like is correct with no knowledge. There's really nothing here that will get a restraining order. Good grief." I was about to mention that given the current situation, I can't really get a restraining order. If she pulls something crazy in the future, then a restraining order will be the first thing I try to get my hands on. But there's hope that it won't come to that. Then User 2 commented and said, "If she had apologized and taken full responsibility during your face-to-face, would you have reconsidered, or was it done for at that point?" It's hard to say. Maybe I could have respected her more if she took responsibility, but I feel like at this point, there's more to the breakup than the crash itself. And finally, User 3 commented and said, "Okay, so was there any alcohol involved in your picnic?" No, I stopped drinking 2 years ago, and my ex isn't a drinker at all. Okay, so I don't really think there's much to discuss here, right? I mean, she violated his boundary. She did something really stupid. And in doing both of those things at the same time, she got OP's car damaged and nearly got OP and herself killed. Like, what else is there to do? If you want, you can beg for forgiveness, you can beg for them to take you back, but you need to own up to that because you pulled a stupid move. A level 9 stupid. Anyway, next story. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for getting my roommate to hook up with my ex to get my favorite coffee mug back? So, I collect coffee mugs that are shaped as cool things. Anyways, I dated a guy for a year that brought me back this mug from the United States shaped as a shark. The handle was a fin. It was a semi-expensive mug, and I was looking into buying another one, and I love sharks more than anything, so this was the perfect gift. This mug was so perfect that I would never use it for coffee because coffee wasn't worthy of this mug. When we broke up, despite my love for the shark mug, I put it in the box of stuff you give back to your ex, thinking it would bring back too many memories. Now, a year later, I'm happily with someone else, and these memories are no longer. I basically just want my favorite mug back. My roommate, who is newly single, is on Tinder, happened to match with my ex. I explained the mug story, and now we've made it a mission for her to go over there, hook up with him, and take the mug in the morning. To be fair, he's only looking for the hookup as he has stated in his profile, so no emotional sabotage. Edit. To be fair, she was already planning on hooking up with him anyways. I just told her to comment on the mug if she saw it to be funny, and she said she would just get it back. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "You are the a-hole, but this is so funny that I don't care." Then user 2 said, "Mission Impossible theme plays in the background." User 3, Jaws theme plays after that. Then user 4 said, "You're the a-hole, but who cares? Hilarious and keep on keeping on. This is like a Seinfeld episode." User 5, "You're the a-hole, so you're pimping your friend for a mug? Nice." User 6, "You're the a-hole, but have her check his cabinets for other cool mugs as well. If you're going to steal one, might as well keep going." User 7, "Man, I slept with this girl last night and when she left, half my mugs were gone." And finally, user 8, "You're the a-hole, but do it anyway because you're a pimp. And if a pimp wants it, a pimp gets it. Please update." Update. I know you all desperately want this edit. He's invited her over to check out his new place when he's done moving, with a wink at the end, of course. So progress. Unpack kitchen essentials and chill, anyone? Emergency update. The ex and my roommate are still talking, but now my ex's roommate has also matched with her on Tinder and is asking her to come over. Same house. This plot twist is effing unreal. New update. Operation Shark Rescue is currently a go. Wish you luck, Reddit. Update. 6 months later. Hello again, Reddit, and thank you for coming with me on Operation Shark Mug. I'm pleased to update you all on this fine Thursday. This is what has happened. The roommate did in fact sleep with the ex. The roommate did in fact see the mug, and she also did not take it back. The sex was inevitable. I thought all was lost in Operation Shark Mug. My dreams crushed, to say the least. Game over. But then, I recently was in a wedding which the ex attended as a close friend. Him and I made conversation about the roommate, about the mug, and eventually I came clean about the plan. Yeah, that's right, I'm not a total jerk after all, and he told me that it was a hilarious plan, but that he had to be honest with me. The shark mug, you see, was too important to use as well. So, the fate of the shark mug is his effing toothbrush holder. He sent me picture evidence later that evening, and I told him I deserved it for the plan I hatched. End of the day, it was a good laugh for all. The end. Okay, so once again, what can you say? Just a great, simple, straight-to-the-point story. We need more of these, and not soul-crushing cheating and divorce stories. This was definitely a Seinfeld episode, and I love how the comments were like, yeah, OP, you're the a-hole. What happens next, though? Anyway, next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for forcing my family to babysit so I won't have to? I am 19F and am living at home, working a part-time job, doing some freelance stuff, and taking some online courses, all in preparation for attending college next year. My sister, 25F, had her first child 8 months ago. The father isn't involved and only pays child support. My mom is excited to have her first grandchild and is constantly offering to look after the baby so my sister can feel at ease working full-time and afterwards, and will have some time for herself to relax. The thing is, about 70% of the time, I'll be the one looking after the baby, and while I admit that I enjoy it and like spending time with him, I can't help but feel mad because they don't have any consideration for my time. Mom would drop the baby while I'm in the middle of my lessons because you can always watch the recordings later, or just ask someone to tell you about what happened. Or when I'm working in my freelance stuff because looking after the baby doesn't really require much when I complain about getting delayed in my projects. My breaking point happened last week when my mother and sister left the baby with me for a whole day because I mistakenly told them I didn't have to work and would be staying at home to catch up with some pending stuff and study. I called them both irresponsible and they called me a spoiled brat. That night, my grandma and other members of the extended family were calling and sending me messages about the importance of helping family and to understand that my sister doesn't have it as easy being a single mom. I got mad and sent a message to the family group chat saying they were right, helping family is important, and we all should be supportive of my sister. I then proceeded to write a schedule in which all of us could take care of the baby. Because one aunt goes to visit grandma on holidays and Wednesday mornings, they could babysit those days. Eldest cousin and her siblings are at her home Friday afternoon? Well, they can babysit that time, and so on and so forth. I left Saturday mornings and Tuesday evenings as my time to babysit. My sister and mom were very pleased with the arrangement. The other family, not so much. And when someone pointed out that my sister didn't get the baby for a whole day, discussions about my sister being an irresponsible mother started, with my mother trying to defend her. So, am I the a-hole for causing this? How come they were expecting me to be my sister's unpaid nanny, but then they got offended when the same thing is being forced on them? I may be the a-hole because I caused this, but I don't regret it one bit. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole. You are not a spoiled brat. Your sister is a spoiled brat. She chose to bring a child into this world thinking other people would parent him for her. The only person responsible for this baby is your sister." I blame that on our mom. When my sister told us she was pregnant and that the father wouldn't be involved, our mother assured her if she kept the baby, then she would help her whenever she needed, as she's already retired and, like I said, was excited to have her first grandchild. Then user 2 commented and said, "If your mom assured her that she would be the one to help her whenever she needs it, why is she turning around and dumping the baby on you instead?" I might have a theory on that. Way before my sister got pregnant, we, my mom, my sister, and me were talking about the future and the theme of marriage, and kids came up, and I must have been around 14 at the time, and I proclaimed I would like to be child-free. Mom didn't take it too seriously at the time, kinda like, "You'll change your mind when you grow up." I didn't. So, I think she is in part doing this to convince me that babies/children aren't that bad, because sometimes when I was babysitting, she would go, "Aww," about how I would be an amazing mother and how good I am with children. But I don't want to. I love being an aunt, and was pretty excited about my nephew being born too, but the constant babysitting pretty much drained me out. I might change my mind on having children in the future with adoption or surrogacy, which I'm sure my mom wouldn't approve of either, but being pressured like this isn't helping. Then OP elaborated on her sister getting a nanny or babysitter and said, "I have already suggested hiring a nanny several times, but my sister claims that she wouldn't feel at ease leaving her child with a stranger. I then agreed to babysit certain days according to my schedule, but they wouldn't respect it. I did get paid to babysit for a few times, but they would make a big deal out of it, and I would end up feeling guilty, so I stopped asking for any payment." Then user 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. It's nice to help out every now and then when you can, but you have a life too. Your family shouldn't expect you to babysit and just be fine with it when you clearly have a busy schedule. And now that they have a taste of their own medicine all of a sudden, it's a problem." I think most of the problem is that they don't consider what I do, aside from my part-time job, to be worthy of being busy. I tutor at a children's academy, by the way. I work as a freelance editor of audio and video, but they just see it as me being on my laptop just because, and I take Spanish courses 4 times a week, along with audio engineering stuff 3 times a week. Both require me to do homework, and in the latter case, work on projects, but they still don't consider that a big deal, and honestly, I'm too tired of explaining to them why both are important. Then user 4 commented and said, "I absolutely love this. Well done. How much time off from the child does your sister get as a present?" I think it would be easier to tell you how much time my sister does get with the baby. She is a paralegal at a law office and works from 8 to 5 Monday to Wednesday and Friday. Between commuting and she and my mom saying that she needs time to eat and unwind, she gets the baby around 7 p.m. Thursdays, she's at the home office, but because home office is still work, she won't watch the baby until the evening. Weekends, she'll have the baby on Saturday evenings, mornings too, unless she goes to have brunch, coffee, or whatever with her friends. Not every Saturday to her credit, though, and Sundays is half and half, because we usually get together with the rest of the extended family, and in the evening, paternal grandparents will visit to bond with the nephew. So objectively, she does not really spend a lot of time alone with the baby. Then user 5 commented and said, "That was a beautiful way to address that. Everyone always says, but family, until it comes back on them." Thank you. I admit I got the inspiration after reading several Reddit posts and comments dealing with similar issues. I was like, what if I did? And while I don't necessarily regret taking that route, there's this little worry of having gone too far. As I said, the family is having a big discussion about this. Honestly, I wasn't being all that serious. I mostly was angry and just wanted to prove my point. But given how it all blew up, it was way more than what I hoped for. Update, 1 week later. Okay, a lot of things have happened. Honestly, I'm still not in the mood to provide a full update. But the main points are, my sister did try to impose the babysitting schedule I made, and the family wasn't happy. My mom, sister, and I had a big discussion. Hurtful things were said on both ends, and I'm currently staying with my BFF and his girlfriend. They are both total sweethearts, but it is not a feasible long-term arrangement, even though they have said I could stay with them as long as I need. The family is complaining non-stop, and I'm feeling guilty because technically, I'm the one who caused this by creating the schedule in the first place. Maybe I should have just sucked it up. And I do really feel sorry for my nephew. All the family usually gets together on Sundays, and this time my grandma's eldest daughter, my mom's eldest sister, is coming from another state. This is kind of like a big thing since she's grandma's golden child, in a good way, and kind of like the leader of the family. I am both hopeful and nervous. If someone can solve this crap show, it is her. But at the same time, I'm worried about her blaming me like everyone else. I will provide a full update then. Also, sorry for not having the time to answer all the comments and PMs. Like I said, a lot of things happened, but here's some of the questions people have asked. 1. My relationship with my mom and sister. It was pretty good before my sister got pregnant. We, my sister and I, always knew that she was more favored by our mom because they had more common interests, while it was the same case for me and my dad. This wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Think it more of a, if one of us wanted to visit a friend or needed a specific favor, we knew which parent to ask. We would actually team up sometimes to convince them of something, me appealing to dad and my sister to mom. Sadly, dad passed away 5 years ago. He was an amazing father and we were absolutely heartbroken. But one good thing that came out of it was that it helped us bond. Dad loved classical music and was really into IT and programming. I would go to concerts with him and he got me into gaming. After his passing, Mom began to buy tickets to classical concerts, and the three of us would go together as a way to remember him. We also went to watch the Super Mario movie because my dad would have loved to be there, even if my sister and Mom knew little of the franchise. So things going this bad makes me pretty sad. 2. My job. I work part-time at a kids' after-school academy. We tutor them at the subjects they find hard and help them do their homework and prepare for tests. My freelance job is video and audio editing for my BFF and his girlfriend. Both are streamers and content creators. They know about my Reddit post, but asked me to leave out their personal details, so please don't ask for their accounts. And I do 1 weekly video for her and 1 or 2 for him. 3. Do I pay rent? No, I don't. Dad had a hard time with his family, and while my sister and I didn't know the details and are no contact with them, we kind of imagined what went down. Dad left the house to Mom and make her promise to make it a safe place for my sister and I. They decided to accept us for paying rent as long as we cover for our own expenses. My sister and I cover our groceries, cell phones, some services, and I pay part of their gas whenever they give me a ride because I don't have a car. 4. Extended family. As I said, we are no contact with Dad's family. Mom, 50Y, is the third of 4 siblings. There's the eldest aunt, eldest uncle who was deceased and was the father of the cousins I mentioned in my first post, and a young uncle, 39. Grandma is currently 77. 5. My nephew's dad. He and my sister were together for about 2 years. When she found out she was pregnant and wished to keep the baby, the relationship ended. As he is child-free, a paternity test was conducted after my nephew was born, and he was the father. He pays child support and has no contact with the baby. His parents, my nephew's paternal grandmother and grandfather, do keep in touch with the baby, and by what I was told, them along with the rest of their family didn't approve of his actions regarding my sister and nephew. So far, they don't know what's going on, and I didn't involve them in the initial babysitting schedule because I'm sure that would have been another whole crap show. Update. 6 days later. A lot of things happened and I'm finally in the mood to write the update, so here it goes. My sister did follow my schedule for babysitting that involved our extended family, and, well, they weren't happy. 2 days after my post, she left my nephew with one of our aunts. She, the aunt, was meeting some friends for brunch and had to take the baby with her. The baby was fussy and crying, and she had to come home early. My aunt was understandably pissed off, and I had agreed to babysit the next day, and that's when things began going downhill. My nephew is used to being with me, but this time he was very fussy and coughing, and I thought something was odd. Mom wasn't home, and I tried to call her, but she didn't answer until about 2 hours later. She came home, checked my nephew, and he had a light fever. Of course, we called my sister, and she blamed our aunt for taking out the baby, because how dare she have a life while being forced to babysit, and she accused our aunt in the family group chat, and a whole discussion blew up. Suddenly, my mom and sister remembered I was the one who involved the whole family with the babysitting schedule, and then I was the one at fault. That was my breaking point. I ended up telling my sister that she was negligent and a part-time mother for my nephew. Not my proudest moment, and I immediately regretted it, not gonna lie. My mother countered that if my dad, he passed away 5 years ago, listened to me, he would have been very disappointed in me. That killed me because I was really close to him, and he always put family above all. Still, I was mad, so I said that I expected my sister to reimburse the amount I took out for my college fund in full. Not my proudest moment, and I immediately regretted it, not gonna lie. Some info. When my sister and I were born, Dad and Mom set up a college fund for each of us. Dad always encouraged us to study and improve ourselves, and when my nephew was born, I took $5,000 from my fund to start one to honor my dad, as I'm sure he would have done the same. After that, I packed a bag and took an Uber to my best friend's apartment. I told him what happened, and he said he and his girlfriend invited me to stay with them as long as I needed. I blocked my mother, sister, and the rest of the family and spent the following days both avoiding them and worrying about my nephew. Last Friday, I received a call from an unknown number. It was one of my eldest aunt's daughters. She and her family live in another state, so they mostly followed the drama from afar, and my cousin told me they were coming to visit, and my aunt was going to have a serious chat with all of us. Not gonna lie, I was really nervous. I think I mentioned this on my previous post. My mom, 50, is the third of 4 siblings. We'll call them Rose, my eldest aunt, Mario, my eldest uncle who is deceased, and the father of the cousins I mentioned in my first post, my mom, and John, the youngest uncle. There's also Jane, Mario's widow, and the aunt that I mentioned in this post that took out the baby. Rose is pretty much my grandma's golden child, in a good way, and the second mother to her siblings, and overall a very strong woman. She and her husband have 5 adopted children, and due to the complicated logistics, to hear that they are suddenly coming over was a very big deal. Sunday came, and my best friend and his girlfriend accompanied me to my grandma's house for moral support. Rose and her family were already there, and I spent most of the time avoiding my mom and sister. Deep down, I knew she wouldn't dare to yell or call me out in front of Rose, as she's scared of making her angry. After some hours, Rose finally addressed the elephant in the room. It was a long, emotive discussion, and we all ended up crying. So I'll sum up the main points. 1. Baby nephew is a human being, not a stray puppy to be passed around. He needs some stability. 2. Stop with the "if you couldn't afford to have a child, why did you have it" comments. My nephew is here, and he's not going anywhere. Let's focus on solutions. 3. To my sister, as a mother, you need to learn to put your child first, and while it is okay to rely on help sometimes, don't do it all the time. It is bad for the baby and the others involved. 4. To my mother, stop enabling her. 5. To the rest of the family, unless you're willing to offer some solutions, don't meddle in other people's affairs. And 6. To me, about the babysitting schedule. Well done, kiddo. And then I cried in relief. My sister then admitted that while she loves my nephew, she felt unfit to be a mother and wasn't fully conscious of the responsibility it would take to raise him. Apparently, my mother was aware of that, and her response was to make me babysit my nephew in order to make my sister feel less stressed out. And yes, to make me hopefully change my mind about having kids in the future. Rose also spoke to Mom about that. Rose then said, worst case scenario, she and my cousins talked, and either her eldest sons and daughter were willing to adopt my nephew. Apparently, both discussed it with respective spouses, and all are on board if it came to that. To be honest, while it's good that my nephew would be in a loving and safe home, Rose and my cousins are amazing people, it would hurt not seeing him as often anymore. Rose emphasized to my sister to think it carefully, and that if it came to that, it would be a permanent adoption, not a daycare service where she could come dump him for days or weeks and then come pick him up later. So, that's mainly it. My sister will be seeing a therapist next week, and Mom and I have apologized, and I clarified I didn't actually want to be reimbursed from the money for my nephew's college fund. Also, some members of the extended family also apologized for pressuring me to babysit in the first place. I'm back home at my house and have compromised to babysit 3 times a week, all according to my personal schedule and for a reasonable period of time. During one of those 3 times, my sister will be joining me, as she admitted she felt she didn't really know my nephew and hasn't really bonded with him. So, since the baby is somewhat attached to me, the 3 of us will be spending some time together. Overall, I think it was a good resolution, but time will tell. I really hope my sister will improve and be the mom that my nephew deserves. Thank you all for the support and the comments. Whenever I felt that what I did was wrong, your comments really helped to lessen the guilt. And some of you even made me laugh. Hopefully, this will be my last update. So, thank you all. Okay, so I think the moral of the story here is that sometimes you just need a leader, someone to strike fear in your hearts, because apparently when Rose showed up, everyone shut up and sit down. But I suppose that's just eldest sibling energy, especially in big families, and we've seen that happen in a few stories before, and well, it looks like Rose settled everything, and everything worked out pretty much. So there you go, the end, happy ending, and hopefully no more updates, and hopefully they keep the nephew. But anyway, next story. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend that I don't think it's appropriate to come on the family vacation? New update. I am 21F. My boyfriend is 23M. We will call him Charlie. Around a month ago, my mom mentioned a family vacation while on call with me. Charlie and I have been together for about a year. He has still not met my mom's side of the family, only my dad's. My mom, 42F, lives in my home country together with my stepdad, 50M, and my stepbrother, 24M, who lives there too, but not in our hometown. Because of this, he hasn't had the chance to meet them yet. Yesterday, I mentioned it to my best friend 21F, who I've been friends with for 17 years now. I was on the phone with her. She still lives in the city that we grew up in, and goes to university there, and because of that, she sees my parents often. My mom invited her like any other vacation, and this time she has decided to come. The trip is fully paid by my stepdad and my mom. My stepbrother will be bringing his fiancée, 21F, too. Charlie was in the room while I was on the call and asked me what he should pack. I looked at him confused and asked if he's going somewhere, and he said he needs to know what to pack for the trip, and I laughed and thought he was joking, since I never said he was coming. Then I realized he was serious, so I sat him down and told him that he isn't going to be able to come, and there was no reservation for him. Plus, it will be very inappropriate to invite him over, knowing that this is a family trip, and it will make a bad impression, like he is just trying to come because it's going to be free. They have never met him, and there isn't any room left. He doesn't have a passport, and there are other reasons that I tried explaining. He flipped out on me, telling me that I am a female dog, and that I'm probably cheating on him, and that's why he is not invited. I tried explaining, but he left the apartment. He hasn't returned since yesterday, and at 4 a.m., I have to leave for the airport. I'm worried sick, and I've called so many times, and I'm texting him, but he hasn't responded. So, am I the a-hole? Then in the comments section, the verdict was that OP was not the a-hole. Update, 5 days later. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a nice day. After my original post, I figured I could make an update. When I was leaving from the apartment 4 days ago, I left a key to my neighbor/friend. Yesterday, she called me to inform me that my boyfriend's stuff was missing and my writing studio and my manga collection are destroyed. Some of my savings are stolen too, and yesterday, he tried to empty my bank account but failed miserably. $5K is apparently missing from the drawer of my nightstand, and my boyfriend is nowhere to be found. Luckily, for me, my stepbrother's fiance's mother is a lawyer. Mom's side of the family is trying to calm me down and get me away from the situation as much as possible. I thought this was a minor problem in the beginning, but here we are. Dad's side of the family is telling me to drop the charges and that I'm overreacting. And yes, I did place charges. I will have to deal with it further when I get back, but police are already on the hunt for him. Also, some people said I was the a-hole because this would be the perfect time to meet my family. But in this case, it just seemed like a direct, I want a free trip to me. Somebody pointed out that we have communication problems. Yes, we do. I didn't really want to mention this, but I am on the autism spectrum, so it's pretty normal in a way. He knew 2.5 weeks before I went to the trip, and I made it clear he won't be coming. New update, 4 days later. To the 5 people who told me that I'm sick and not right in the head, message me again that I'm in the wrong when you have to fix over $25K in damages, and I dare you not to press charges. Today, I got back into my apartment, and the damages are much more serious than they were described to me. The moment I opened the door, I stepped on crushed glass. The mirror next to the door was broken and crushed. My shoes were ripped apart. The shoe rack was in the living room, and a cupboard door was out of the wind. Yes, literally. The windows were shattered, the cupboards were broken, the sink was broken and running. I barely turned it off. The TV was broken on the ground, and there was what looked like holes in the wall that were, I think, made by the coat hanger that was barely next to the fallen on the ground TV. The bathroom sink was cracked, and the bathtub curtain was on the ground, and the metal bar it was attached to was detached on one side. My closet was trashed and the clothes in it, and shoes were ripped and torn. Charges are processing faster now that I'm back. Then in the comments section, one user said, "I am so sorry this has happened. Has your ex been apprehended yet?" Yes, before I got back to my apartment, I went to the police station and he was there, and they told me to get the cameras in my apartment. Right now, I'm in a taxi with the cards from the cameras. And finally, user 2 commented and said, "Update us, please. What was going on with this? Was your ex charged?" Yes, he was, and this is being taken to court. So, fellow viewers, when did you know that this story was going to go sideways? I think it was the second that she said that they had been dating for 1 year. So, the second sentence. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if you're dating for a year and your family lives nearby, like less than an hour away or so, then that's fine. I think that's feasible. But if you have to travel to another country, if you have to go like a couple states away, then that's a bit different because that requires coordinating and planning. But also, this is a family vacation. I feel like getting to know like your partner's parents is a bit more of an intimate thing. I don't know. It's a family vacation. And I feel like that's not the ideal time to introduce somebody who isn't in a way family yet. He hasn't crossed that introductory barrier, so I don't think OP's the a-hole. But anyway, next story. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for yelling at and ignoring my girlfriend over a prank? I, 22M, have been with Nicole, 25F, for a couple of years now, and she's always liked survival stuff and weaponry and all that. I had really bad experiences with knives when I was younger, and Nicole knows about them. We both love Halloween and usually throw a party and dress up and goof around, cook up pumpkin seeds, and watch movies. Anyway, the point is Nicole loves doing tricks with her knives, like 5-finger fillet, flicking it open and closed, twirling it, etc., and she'll do it when we're watching a show or a movie together. All while forgetting that I've asked her to please not to, or she will buy a new one and show it off, asking if I wanted to give it a first bite, and then pout when I say no. 2 days ago, she was playing with it again, and I asked her why she keeps forgetting, and she said, "Wow, okay, don't insult my intelligence again," and then that it was just a knife, and therefore not a big deal, and therefore not that important to remember. After that, she put away the knife, and we continued to have an okay night, but I was on edge and jumpy whenever she touched me. Yesterday, she called me into the kitchen, only she was playing 5-finger fillet, and I startled her and she messed up badly. I lost my cool, screamed my head off, tried shouting what I knew about first aid at her while I raced to grab my phone, completely panic dialing 911, only for her to start laughing and showing me that it was a prank involving red food dye and a carrot. She had a nice laugh about it and said I would have known it was a joke if I wasn't so squeamish about knives, that it's proof I need to get more comfortable with them, and that anyone with passing knowledge knows that it doesn't look like that when something like that happens. She kept explaining how she did it, how she practiced, how she could show me, but I didn't even answer her. It was like my head was underwater and my heart was beating out of my chest. I just moved on autopilot and grabbed my keys and drove a few blocks away before pulling over to breathe. Nicole tried to call me, and the first thing I said was, "It wasn't funny at all." And she asked, "Are you crying?" And then I hung up on her. She kept texting me, saying she was sorry, that she didn't think I would react so badly to a joke, and that it was just meant to be good fun in the Halloween spirit. I ignored her. I texted her after that I was home, but I ignored everything else. The morning, she sent the pictures of the props to the group chat with a few of our mutual friends, and they chimed in saying, "It doesn't even look real." And I've muted the chat since then, and I'm wondering if I have a leg to stand on before I go back and apologize. Edit. It's overwhelming how much of a response this got, and I tried to read all of your comments. Some of them made me laugh, some warmed my heart, others had very hard truths that I still needed to hear, no matter how raw it left me. There are a lot of repeating questions and assumptions. First, we don't live together. At this point, I don't think we ever will. Second, I stayed primarily because the good seemed to outweigh the bad. Remember the negatives more than the positive. So obviously I just had to remember her positive qualities instead of being swayed by my focus on the bad times. Plus, it was always perfect after we had a fight, and I just assumed the boom and bust cycle was normal. I didn't know Nicole liked knives at first. A mutual friend, Crystal, who was in the group chat, and I met Crystal during a community college course, introduced us when I was new to the area. And at first, Nicole and I hit it off as we had a lot of shared interests. Music, art, outdoor activities, going antiquing, wine, food, and cooking, just a lot of things. We started dating and eventually went on a camping and hiking trip where she used a knife to split some kindling and she was pointing it towards herself. I remember talking to her to watch out, and she made me relax because she did it all the time. She asked me if I wanted to do it myself, and I admitted I didn't like knives. Later in the trip, we drank by the fire and talked, and that's when I told her about my trauma. She promised to protect me, and I remember that exactly because I had the mental image of her fending off a mugger, and I joked that she was my hero. My trauma has been brought up after that point, and neither of us were drunk at the time. My knife issues typically don't impact my daily life, except to make me more apt to be very slow in the kitchen when chopping things. It doesn't seem like abuse, especially when we're good, but when it's bad, it's really rough. I don't really have any other baseline as I was a late bloomer dating-wise. My dad always said that you should both give 110% in a relationship, but everyone argues. I thought working through the rough patches was normal. That's also why I was preparing to apologize, because it takes two in an argument, so I am responsible as well and need to apologize for my part. In this case, ruining the night with my reaction. I did go through therapy to help cope with the initial incident surrounding my aversion to knives. It was a lot worse when it happened, to the extent where I couldn't have anyone point the knife in the direction of another living being, or certain songs on the radio that were playing at that time, or certain smells. I've made progress, but clearly not enough to stay with her and deal with her fidgeting with the knives. I will admit to backsliding a bit in that regard though, since I seem a lot more anxious when I stay the night and can't stay asleep, or having more nightmares, which is why I believed her when she said I was overreacting. Also, concerning the fidgeting, it's not a constant thing. Sometimes she would go weeks without pulling the knife out. Sometimes she'd complain that I'd only focus on the fact that she had used the knife, versus how long she had abstained, which seems reasonable to point out. Then in the comments section, the verdict was not enough information. Update. A lot of the conversation is paraphrased with quotes that stuck in my mind. I also kept adding to this as things developed, and I'm running on zero sleep, so I'm sorry if it's not very clear. I did reach out to Nicole again yesterday to talk it out, and I went with the intention of standing my ground and explaining things so she could understand my side. She greeted me with, "Thanks for gracing me with your presence," and asked if I was here to act my age and talk like an adult. She slammed the door behind me and pointed to the couch so we could discuss things. Nicole opened with my reaction, saying it was unreasonable and completely out of line considering the situation. I said that things need to change because that prank wasn't okay at all, and she knows I have issues with knives. And I asked, what was funny about the prank? And she interrupted and said that ultimatums aren't part of any relationship. So I said, I don't think this is working out for us. I don't think we're happy together. And Nicole froze at first, and I started to explain that the knife thing and our respective stances being so different is not fair to either of us. But she repeatedly asked, "So you're going to break up nearly 3 years just because of this?" And I tried to tell her it was more than just this. It was everything else. It was that she keeps forgetting and triggering me, that she loves playing with them, but it upsets me. But she started talking over me and yelling that apparently I think she's an idiot, and that I'm the best actor in the world because she never knew I felt so horrible, and that maybe I should call the cops on her for abuse. She grabbed her cell phone and offered it to me again and again, saying, "Go on, call." But when I said we just need to talk, she interrupted with, "No, you won't, because you know, I know, we both know no cop is going to arrest me for a joke." Also, I'm not very tall, 5'9", and she's only 5'6", but she was standing right in front of me the whole time while I was seated, so I couldn't get up without moving her. After throwing her phone on the couch next to me, she stormed into the kitchen, shouting that she should get rid of all of her knives because I'm so terrified. She threw a few into the sink and then took the whole block of knives into the trash, the whole time asking, "What about this one? Too sharp? Too scary?" When I flinched at the noises, she said, "Oh, do you feel threatened? How do you think I feel when I have to defend myself against your feelings?" And Nicole told me to quit crying, that I can't just use tears to manipulate her, and mocked me when I said, "Please stop." She said she has to walk on eggshells because she has to deal with a boyfriend that can't handle a single joke without running off into the night. "It's not hard to not overreact. Literally just think before you go crazy. It's that simple." And that it's ridiculous that a grown man can't handle a knife or a gun. And I refuse to let go of my victimhood because anyone normal would have gotten over it by now. It's been nearly 9 years. She called me stubborn and childish for picking this hill to die on, that I'm not innocent. It's not fair that I'm allowed to ignore her for hours, but she can't have a little fun. And is my ego really that big? It's sickening that I don't trust her or think she's smart or skilled enough to handle a knife properly, and it's sexist, infantilizing, and insulting. At some point, I said, I think I need to go home, and it was like a switch, and she just said, "Please stop crying, I hate when you cry," and joked, I think because she laughed, "I guess hibachi dates are off the table, huh? And I should probably take the knives out of the trash now, shouldn't I?" She apologized and said since it means so much to me, she'll put in more effort. She admitted that I'm such a sensitive guy that if she stopped doing everything that made me uncomfortable, she wouldn't be able to do anything. She pointed out that I cried while watching My Girl the other day as proof that I'm overly emotional, and it made sense that she thought I was just being my normal self. But she was sorry for not realizing sooner that it was really upsetting me. She promised she would do her best to not bring the knives out when I'm around. Nicole hugged me and told me to let go, we can get through this, there's nothing we can't get over, and asked for a chance to start over. A fresh start tomorrow, no more jokes. It's stupid, but I just said yes. I wanted to go home, get out of her house, and leave while she was still acting nice, and I didn't hold my grudge. I feel like an idiot and a coward. I got home and puked and couldn't get to sleep again. Today, Nicole came and dropped off lunch and coffee for me, gave me a kiss and said she loved me, and all the old ladies in the office were gushing about how cute we are together. I'm going to reach out to one of the guys I'm closer to and the friend who set us up to find out when Nicole got so into knives, because I remember about 7 to 8 months in, it was shortly after the camping trip, and it was Nicole's birthday that she asked for a specific knife as her present, so at least then, but I can't really remember there being anything major before then. I'm going to break up officially with her tomorrow, with one of the guys if possible, so I can get my stuff from her place. Update number 2, 3 years later. Roll this back over a decade ago for more background. When I was a preteen, we experienced a home invasion that resulted in my mother and dog dying, and left me with a lifelong phobia of knives and anxiety surrounding blood and break-ins. Directly following the break-in, I was unable to handle a knife being pointed at another living creature. My brain caught on to stupid things and connected them to the events and made them into triggers. Mom's perfume, the sound of glass shattering or a door banging open, a song that was playing at the time. Even now, I still hate the song, but at least it doesn't trigger a flashback anymore. Blood on beige carpet featured prominently in my nightmares. I worked extensively with a therapist to process what happened and what I had seen. Recovery took years of therapy, weeks of inpatient care, medication to help with the nightmares, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. We sold the house as soon as we could. I moved out of state as soon as I could. I kept up with therapy and continued to take my medication. My aversion to knives became something minor in how it impacted my life. I was careful in the kitchen, and I certainly didn't search out knife-throwing competitions, but it was under control in my normal daily life. It helped that everything seemed to be coming together. I made new friends, I was balancing work and school, I had just met the girl who would become my first long-term adult girlfriend. I now know it was just the honeymoon phase, but it felt like we were progressing well, even once infatuation wore off. We stood together through highs and lows and the mediocre middle ground where there's nothing exciting, just the mundane. I thought that was the marker of a steady relationship, to be able to stick together, even after the excitement of a new relationship has faded. We went on a few trips together, driving across state lines to meet our family or flying back to see my dad. On one of our trips, we went camping and my fear of knives got brought up. That led to the break-in getting brought up. She seemed to care at the time, even promising to protect me if something ever happened and offering to help install a camera in my apartment. After the camping trip, I don't know if it was always there and I noticed it more after or what, but she started to be more obviously into knives, practicing tricks in front of me, showing videos to me, starting a collection. She even asked for a knife for her birthday that year, showing me exactly which one she wanted. Before she was into camping, she was into guns, which ironically I have zero issue with, and how to forage and make shelter, purify water, basic survival stuff, and artillery and tanks. She did multiple courses about military history in college, and busted out the textbooks sometimes if she remembered something she thought I would find interesting. But suddenly, it seemed like her focus was on carving and skinning animals, on knife wounds and tricks and collecting and displaying knives. She started doing the tricks more often, in front of me, even when sitting next to me on the couch or at the dinner table. She would gesture with the knife without thinking and even pointed at me. Again, one of my major triggers is knives being pointed at people or animals. She started sending me videos of news clips of other break-ins, or news reports of robberies ending in people dying, between a bunch of other funny videos or pictures, so checking Snapchat would become a game of Russian roulette. If I didn't check the links sent through text message, she would keep sending them and ask what I thought. She'd forget that she had the knife in hand when she came up to me, sometimes from behind. My nightmares came back, my anxiety got worse. No matter how often I reminded her to please stop playing with the knife in front of me, or at least not next to me, she would always forget after a little bit. Some part of me refuses to believe there's no way she risked bodily harm just to unnerve me. It came to a head when she pulled a prank when she pretended to cut a finger off. We had a huge fight, our biggest one yet, and I wish I had acted differently and didn't storm out, but I did. There was a lot about my time with Nicole I would do differently in hindsight. I was so sure I'd just break up with her for good. I don't know why I didn't stay broken up with her. When I did it first, I did it alone because my friend Jack rolled his eyes and called me a P word for wanting backup. So I did it in a coffee shop instead, hoping the public eye could be my backup. Nicole stared at me with this affronted expression, and it was like I couldn't find the words anymore. Her eyes were huge and wide and hateful, like I've never seen anyone glare at me like that. She gripped onto the cup like she was going to throw it at me. I had it in my head to bolt the second that she moved because I could see it so clearly. But then she started crying loudly and kept asking why I do this to her and that she hoped I found happiness with someone better since she clearly wasn't enough for me, despite doing everything to be a good girlfriend. I felt like crap and people were staring, so I wished her well and asked her if she wanted me to call a friend, but she told me to leave her the F alone, so I did. I hate how I handled the breakup, but I felt in the moment like I was on autopilot. In short order, I lost the support of our mutual friends, who had become my only friends during my relationship with Nicole, which I understood as they knew her for much longer. Jack actually confronted me and called me a piece of crap for embarrassing her like that in public, calling me trash for leaving her sobbing alone and not offering her a ride home. He wouldn't listen to my explanations and said I could excuse myself, but everyone knew what kind of guy I really was. People at work mentioned how sad it was that we broke up. I didn't feel like it was the place to explain my reasoning, and after the confrontation with Jack, I didn't feel like I had the right to do so. I felt like a crap person, and I felt numb. I tried to move on, to find a new normal, and after about a month of us being broken up, she called me and begged for me to come over to help her. She was scared that she would hurt herself. I went to her immediately, and I held her all night. I helped her wash her hair after days of not being able to bring herself to do it, and she admitted that she'd done a terrible thing, and that she couldn't stand how she'd treated me, that she wished she could go back and change things so that we could still be together. I didn't know how to address that, so I just stayed with her the whole night, and the next day at work, she came by to drop off a homemade lunch and to thank me for being there for her. I stupidly let myself get sucked back in, and I guess that it's my fault. Coffee in the morning became dinner, and drinks out became movie nights, and going to shows and flea markets together because we still had similar interests. One time, she even noticed a booth with knives and directed us away. And while yes, it wasn't necessary as I could see a knife display and not be freaked out, it was a nice gesture, because before, she would have gone there and either bought herself one or asked me to buy it for her. One of multiple changes that made me think that maybe she was truly making an effort. That at the least, maybe we could be friends again. And I started to get involved back into the group somewhat. 2 months later, she kissed me. We were both drunk and it didn't go any further. I didn't talk to her about it because I thought she didn't remember, but then she approached me to ask if there was anything salvaging us, if she'd proven that she was different now, and that things would be better. I thought maybe, and I stayed because she really had been so sweet, and it was like starting over, and we got back together. I was permitted back into the friend group in full, though Crystal had stopped talking to everyone, and Jack still refused to speak to me. And while it was awkward at first, soon enough, we were acting like we'd never stopped being friends for even a minute. It felt so good to go back to normal. It was like a weight off my chest and like I could breathe again. It was nice for a while. She was so careful about the knives thing, and it really did feel so normal and steady. Sure, we had some small fights, but we always made up shortly after, and she would be overwhelmingly loving after the fact. It felt like it was before, so it felt normal. But I can't pinpoint when it started to creep back, but maybe when she started watching documentaries on her phone with the sound up high while sitting next to me, or when she'd poke or grab me while I was cutting up dinner, then laugh at my startled response. Or she'd scoff if I teared up watching or reading something, then tell me later that it was out of fondness, not exasperation, and I really needed to stop reading so much into it. Or she'd yell at me for forgetting something that she never even told me about, and then the next day she would get frustrated that I didn't insist properly that she was mistaken. Like it was all small things that on their own weren't even that big of a deal, and I didn't feel like I could just speak up about it or else I was nitpicking her. In hindsight, I was making excuses and clinging to when she was nice to me, trying to do anything to make sure that we stayed just happy without bumps. Part of it was that I knew now that I'd be alone, that no one would understand why I would throw away a good relationship, that being with her was the best thing that could ever happen to me. We moved in together 4 months after getting back together. She was hinting around that it was the only way to prove to her that I'd forgiven her and that we could move on and be happy. She insisted I move into her place because it was easier to move an apartment into a house than the other way around. It constantly felt like she was dangling that night where she was attempting to take her life over me. Like one wrong move for me and maybe the next time she wouldn't call for help. When we had fights, she paced through the house flicking a knife, looping from the bedroom to the living room to the office, or said every single argument was really due to the fact that I was holding a grudge over the prank, and that we wouldn't be arguing if I just grew up and started taking out my trauma on her. She'd tell me not to piss her off because it would be too easy for her to make a mistake and no one would think twice about what happened. A few times, she had gone on a rampage and overturned tables and threw glasses into the sink and dishwasher and said we were done for good, only for the next day to blow up my phone begging me to talk this out or have her friends encourage me to swallow my pride and go back to her because she's miserable without me and she's trying so hard, or she'd just wake me up with a kiss after making me sleep on the couch as if the night before never happened. If I asked about the night before, the fight would start all over, yet this time it would be my fault because she was trying to move on, but I was holding a grudge. The following nearly 10 months were the most terrifying, anxiety-riddled period of my life, and I only had myself to blame. Coming home from work, I would puke my guts out more than a few times on the way just because I didn't want to go back to her. I felt trapped. She threw away the blanket my mother had knitted me for my crib because it was dirty. It wasn't dirty. It was a knit blanket that had been repaired repeatedly and hand-washed frequently, so she had accidentally put it through the wash and destroyed it. Then bought a completely different throw blanket as a replacement and got mad when I didn't consider the matter resolved. Then she pulled another prank, this time with a fake positive pregnancy test, and berated me for not being overjoyed because I immediately started panicking about the cost, bringing up a child in our dysfunction and handling the stress rather than being excited. I feel like she wanted me to be happy so that she could crush my joy, and then became angry that I didn't play to her expectation. That night, she threatened me with a knife, pointing it at me and saying she should just snip me right there since I didn't want to have kids with her, and then she held me as I sobbed because I went into a panic. I didn't want her touching me, but I didn't know what else to do but let her and to apologize to her. Another time, she put the knife to her own throat during a fight and said I clearly want her to end her own life, and didn't stop until I screamed at her, begging to stop. Sometimes when driving, she would start speeding and swerving or closing her eyes while on the highway and saying my fear meant I didn't trust her. Nicole just kept getting worse by the day, and I remember waking up one morning with a moment of clarity. I knew she would eventually kill me, and I was sleeping next to my murderer. But it still wasn't enough for me to push her away. Especially her orbit, it seemed like too much, more than I could handle. Everything I had in me was focused on just surviving day to day. I never knew if she'd break up with me on a whim, or pick a fight, or be constantly pushing me closer to a panic attack all night, or if she'd flip and be so sweet and caring. I felt like every day was Russian roulette hour to hour. Every word I said or action I did or didn't do, a chance to start a raging fight. She tossed out my antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication one night, and then during the resulting argument, she made a big show of forgiving me for raising my voice. I shouldn't have done that, I have no excuse, and then helping me call in an emergency refill. For weeks after, because I said I wanted to break up during the argument, she would ask if I was going to try and run away every time that something went wrong. Takeout order wrong, I spilled a cup of tea, streaming service not working immediately, oh, don't get your panties in a twist and run off, and do I have to worry about you leaving over this mistake too? Eventually that tapered off, but maybe once a month during a fight, she would tearfully go to our friends and ask them to mediate. Then, during the meetings, say that I kept threatening to leave her again, over nothing, and how scared she was of losing me when she didn't know what set me off. More than a few times, she showed me text messages from them where her friends were saying how she deserved better and didn't need to put up with me, but she would tell me, I don't listen to them because I love you anyway. She would slap me and push me during arguments. I could never do anything right because even doing what she wanted without argument or not looking her in the eye could be enough to send her off the rails. Sometimes, as a joke in general, one of our friends would pull out a little pack of tissues and hand it over to me in case I'd run out, or make a production of hiding the butter knife at dinner under the napkin. It was humiliating, but if I spoke up, suddenly I was oversensitive, an embarrassment, no fun, and I had to learn how to deal with adult friendships and jokes. And they had asked her how she could stand it. As a result, I didn't spend much time with them either. Usually Nicole would just go out with them and I would stay home, which was the most relaxing I've ever felt during that time, except for when she started randomly coming home without any notice or timeline, like saying she'd be home at 6 but then not coming back till midnight or early morning, or saying she would be gone until 10 and coming back early at 2 or 3, or randomly calling the house phone to make sure I was home and getting angry if she even thought I sounded breathless, accusing me of having left. She then started hinting around that marriage would be the logical next step, and I was insulting her by not having proposed yet. Then she bought an engagement ring with my credit card and started showing off to all her friends how perfect my choice was. I didn't want to marry her. I felt bad for not wanting to marry her. I wanted us to be happy, and maybe giving her the wedding she wanted would help, but I didn't want to marry her. In all those months, I never went to sleep feeling safe. I lied awake in bed, hyper aware of how close she was, and trying to go over in my head if I had behaved well enough to keep her happy, and what I could do to prevent another explosion. In hindsight, it is sickening how long I let this go on. In the moment, it was just about all I could think to do. I often woke up with nightmares, which in turn would piss her off and set her off in a mood for the next day, but I suggested sleeping separately, and she would rage about how I was calling her a crappy girlfriend/fiance, etc. I started to keep a notebook at work and just started writing crap down, things that she had said or done, incidents and what I had done to set her off. It helped me feel more sane and also more like an effing moron because I could read back on times she actually hurt me and I still hadn't left. Every time I thought about leaving, I felt sick inside. I would lose every social contact I had. I would have to find a new place to live. I'd have to bar her from my workplace, but they can't do anything without a restraining order, and that itself felt like a huge hurdle too. I dropped all my old friends in favor of her and felt like they'd refuse to even talk to me again. I was the idiot that let her back into my life and rekindled the relationship, despite overwhelming feedback. I was stupid enough to deserve every bit of what was happening and too dumb to deserve to escape after wasting my previous chances. I hated myself and had frequent fantasies of just ending it all. The worst part wasn't the anxiety and terror, though. It was when she was sweet and caring. For example, she always went all out for my birthday or anniversaries or Christmas with thoughtful gifts, except for one year where she kicked me out for the evening after throwing some decorations at the wall because they stopped working, for which she blamed me because I put them up. She was sweet and gentle one day or even for a week or two, only to start ramping up the tension until she exploded yet again. She had an uncanny ability to blame me in ways that made me feel responsible for her emotions and for forcing her to react violently. When we drove out to visit my dad for Easter, things started to change. My dad was concerned about how quiet I had become and that I didn't come over for Thanksgiving or Christmas or even called on New Year's Eve like I used to, that I looked tired, unhappy, and thin. Nicole was on her best behavior the whole time and even left her knives in the car, even tried to get everyone to focus on the engagement ring, but Dad still saw something was wrong. For 3 weeks after, he kept trying to contact me, but she wouldn't let me talk to him without her in the room, and she checked my phone any time she left me alone and checked the records online to see if I had deleted any calls. Eventually, I managed to get a burner phone and hid it at work, which allowed me to talk to my dad freely. He flew over with my uncle and they helped me gather my stuff from her house. When Nicole started sobbing and begging me to stay, my uncle kept her from the kitchen knives and had his phone ready to call 911 if she tried to hurt herself or us. When Nicole started to insist I was taking her stuff too, even though I was only taking things either I brought with me or stuff that I bought for me, I just let it go. She got to keep a few sentimental items of mine, and the loss hurts still, but the most important items I was able to take. Like, I was able to get all of my documentation and cards out of her house. I didn't even bother with the ring. It was just money and she was already acting up. My uncle drove my car home, while Dad had me fly with him. I'm ashamed to admit that the months directly following the breakup were almost worse than the time I spent with her, because I was out of survival mode and I couldn't force myself to function the way I used to. I felt like a parasite on my father, unable to get my crap together, falling apart over nothing, being so volatile, it frightened me. I'm in therapy again now, and sometimes I feel better, like I can see a way forward. But then I feel like I'm back in the thick of it, and I'll never go back to normal, and that I'm permanently broken. Even worse, every time I cry or get triggered or have a flashback, I can still hear her voice in my head, calling me over emotional and too sensitive, that I'd be fine by now if I just got over myself, that what I went through wasn't that bad. She has sent mail to my dad's house for a while, threatening letters and pleas for me to see reason and stop overreacting, pictures of us that were sentimental, guilt trips. At first, I couldn't get a restraining order right away against her because I moved. Something about the jurisdiction in courts, but when she sent me those letters, it helped me at least make sure she couldn't continue to contact me. I found my old laptop a while ago and it had the password pre-populated. It wouldn't leave my mind, especially when I read what people were saying. Right now, I'm just rambling to get my head straight, to be honest, but my DMs were full of people saying how the sex must have been amazing, how stupid guys get when they want to stick their dick into something, that I don't have balls or a backbone, and clearly I just need to man up. Basically, everything I told myself to remind me of what I did to deserve being stuck with her. I don't know if I can muster the courage to address any of those responses, but I really just want to tie up this loose end in my life so maybe I can stop rehashing it mentally and finally move on. I might also give my therapist the notebook I kept of Nicole's abuse, but I haven't wanted to even look for it. There's still a box of crap that I haven't opened up because it's all effed with my head so much. What I wish I knew at the start of all of this crap was that any amount of genuine discomfort isn't an acceptable price in a relationship, and you're allowed to stop giving them more chances even if they're trying and seem sorry. You're not obligated to help change people, even if you love them, even if they do slightly better. Okay, so at first I just thought this story was about an evil woman with a knife fetish. Let's be honest, she probably had one. Did she want it to be used on her or against someone else? I don't know. But then the story got more serious, and we've seen this happen so many times. But this one was just excruciatingly long. And of course, it's only a couple of minutes for us, but it was a couple of months for OP, and he was in an abusive relationship. He had trauma, she manipulated it, used it against him, lied, and it was his first adult relationship, so he didn't have any reference, and he knew he wanted to leave, but you know, like many people, you just get stuck and you can't. You're in the mud. You know you're sinking, but you're like, oh my god, what do I do? But you know what? Dad and uncle helped get him out. He got a burner phone, and now OP is on the up and up. He's in therapy, he's away from her, she can't contact him, and Nicole, she's gone. She's got her knives and her military helmets and her questionable memorabilia from the 1940s. Nicole, you are today's a-hole. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!